and at the peak of a hill, a car came around another car and hit me head on. I had a family member that was behind me, so he saw the whole entire accident. He went back to my mom's house, got my mom, my aunt, and told our family. And they get to me, and I'm in the car, and the entire engine is on top of my lap, and I'm trapped in the car. All of my lower extremities were broken. 3 ribs, my pelvic, my right wrist, my jaw, my teeth were hanging out my mouth, my arm was gashed open. I'm grateful that God saw fit that I would survive, and not that I would just survive, but He would give me an extraordinary life. I promised myself that I would never waste the pain that I go through. I find something good in it. I ask God, what is the lesson that you want me to learn in this pain, in this story? So I search for the answers while I'm going through it.
Welcome back to Legacy Talk 3N, where we don't focus on our past, but we focus on our futures. We're looking at the now, the next, as we step into the new. I'm here today with Candee McKibbins. You're meeting her, many of you, for the first time, and she's a living testimony to faith. She's a living testimony to resilience, and she's one that we can say had the power to never, ever give up. Giving up for Candee was not an option. She has a testimony of a woman who survived an impact. She endured recovery, and then she began to walk into, through it all, her purpose. We will discuss today how in her early 20s, Candee had a devastating accident that shattered her body to pieces. But from there, she is now the author of her book that we're claiming to be a bestseller, Broken, Then Blessed. And she'll tell you more about the book today. But get ready for the next. The next is on the horizon, and we are excited about it. She'll give you a little bit about that, but it's still in process. But stay tuned. It is coming. But today, Candee is sharing her story. It's a story of hope, of perseverance. It's a it's a story of purpose, of being willing to serve. She has a story of just life, because no matter where you see Candee or what's going on in her life, you can be assured that the smile is still going to always be on her face. She'll tell us about how setbacks in our lives are not the end of our story, but they should be the beginning of actually stories that will go on for generations. So I'm ready. Are you ready, Candee, to just dive in?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, as we are open, before she goes into anything about the book or pain or survival, we're going to just open with a little bit that'll tell you how we are connected. And it starts with marriage and covenant, and that's where our connection began. So before we get into your incredible story, Candee, I want you to start with something beautiful. Let's start with your love story. And you've been married to my brother for almost 34 years now. And I want to know if you'll just spend a little time sharing how he spotted you in a crowd and how that journey began for you and Tim.
Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you so much, Joanna Moyer, for inviting me on your podcast. And I'm honored. And I'm blessed because I've known you for 35 years or more at this point. And you are the exact same from the first time I met you. And I thank God for that. Well, December the 9th, 1990, I was at Church of Atlanta Lighthouse. I started visiting the church at the end of 1988. My grandmother passed, and after her funeral, I was looking for a new church. So I started going to Church of Atlanta Lighthouse, just kind of sporadically. And at one point, I was going maybe 3 months on, a month off, 3 months on, a month off. And I made a prayer and a commitment to the Lord that I was ready to change my life. I wrote down things that I wanted the Lord to do for me. I wrote down the description of what type of maid I wanted. At that point in my life, I did not know it was a decree, but I wrote down what I wanted out of my life. And I went to church on December the 9th. At the end of service, you, Joanna Moria, you came to me and you grabbed my hand and you pressed a note in my hand and you said, "Hi, I'm Joanna Moria." My brother Tim on the organ, he's been wanting to meet you for several months, but by the time he gets off the organ, you've already left. And I said, "Okay." And I left. I left church with my friend Gladys, and I got in the car and I told Gladys what happened to me. And she said, "Are you talking about Tim?" "I know Tim. I went to school with Tim. We had a class together at the Cab Community College." And she said, "Candee, Tim is really saved." And I said, "Well, why do you say that?" And she said, "Well, we all were passing around notes and cheat notes in the class, and he wouldn't take it." And I said, "Really?" She said, "Yes." She said, "I can get you his information." And she called one of her coworkers and their mutual friend and got his number. And I called him and I left my name and number on the voicemail. At that time, we had voicemails in the house. So it was a recording, like a little tape recorder. I left my name, my number, and he called me back. And that's the way it started.
That's amazing. That's a love story.
Yes, that's the way it started.
With that said, after you married and began building your life with him, did you have any idea that life would unfold the way it did and that God was positioning you both for the battles, but yet the victories that would lie ahead?
Well, we met on December the 9th. We got engaged on May 4th and got married the following New Year's Day. So we got married within 12 months and 23 days. And looking at us from the outside, it didn't make sense. But we knew we connected. We knew it was something special. We knew it was something special. And from the time we met to the time we married and how our life started unfolding, we knew it was something special. Um, and I did not know at that time that he would become a pastor or a preacher, but I knew he was a man of God. I knew he loved God and I knew he was full of integrity. So I trusted him. I trusted him with my life and I didn't mind following him in that way. So I think that is the foundation of our relationship. I trust him. I trust him as a man of God. I trust him to be honest and I respect him.
Respect and trust is big, which I find, and of course, is we're now going into year 36, and you all are almost to year 35. I find that the biggest problem with relationships with this generation and others is just what you said, the foundation. The foundation was set correctly. It was set on a foundation in God. It was set on a foundation of integrity. It was set on a foundation of trust. And these are the characteristics that people are lacking today, and why so many relationships are failing. And that's why I know that we're game changers, and so when I ask you the question, could you have imagined it unfolding in the way it did? I have to also ask myself the question, because as Tim says all the time, life leaves clues. And we can now connect dots that we never would have been able to connect in our 20s or our 30s. But it all makes sense now. So let's talk about that life-changing moment. Take us back to the moment of the accident when everything changed. What happened that day, and how was your life redefined, and how did everything change from that day forward?
Well, it was July 3rd, 1988. I was at my mom's house. We was having a cookout in the backyard, and I would say maybe 30 to 40 family members were gathered. And I was scheduled to leave at 11 o'clock to take a coworker to the bus station. And at 11 o'clock, I got in my car. And at that time, it wasn't big to put your seatbelt on, but I was safety first. So I put my seatbelt on and I drove down the street, turned left, went to the stop sign, turned right. It was a block away from my mother's house. And I headed down McAfee and headed up the hill. And at the peak of a hill, a car came around another car and hit me head on. And they clocked his speed going 75 miles an hour.
On
And
McAfee.
on McAfee at the peak of a hill. And I had a family member that was behind me, so he saw the whole entire accident. He went back to my mom's house, got my mom, my aunt, and told our family. They heard the explosion. So the entire family ran down to the scene of the accident. And before they got to me, the gentleman that hit me head on, he was in a T-top Z28 car, and he flipped out of the car. So they ran past this man where his skull was wide open on the street, running to me, screaming, looking for me. And they get to me, and I'm in the car, and the entire engine is on top of my lap, and I'm trapped in the car. The windshield is shattered. My arm is trapped in the door, and every time they called my name, I would raise my head up. And they called in the Jaw of Life and cut me out of the car. They life flighted me down to Grady Memorial Hospital. And when they got there, they, they tell you the worst first, that I may not walk, I may be paralyzed, I may not be able to have kids. But their main thing was saving my life because all of my lower extremities were broken. 3 ribs, my pelvic, my right wrist, my jaw, my teeth were hanging out my mouth, my arm was gashed open. And when they pulled me out, my family talked about how all the flesh just fell off my body hanging. And I just thank God, my mom said that while they were waiting to um, do MRIs and x-rays, my body went from the normal size and swelled up to the size of the gurney. My whole entire body, including my head. And they were picking glass out of all of my body, out of my face, out of my hands, out of everywhere, my hair. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that God saw fit that I would survive. And not that I would just survive, but He would give me an extraordinary life. And that day changed my life forever. And I would never forget it. I was put into a drug-induced coma for over 2 weeks while they allowed my body to heal. They wanted to do a body cast, but they decided to put rods and screws and bolts to put me back together. And during that time, I just remember during that time as I recovered and I would go to Blockbusters or anywhere, I would set off the alarm because my body was always full of bolts and screws. So
Airport.
yes, airport. We would always leave early, an extra 30 minutes just because I would set it off. And although I've gone through so many hardships, I found so many beautiful moments in it, so many moments to laugh about, and so many moments to find God's grace for my life. Tasha Cobb has this song that's entitled Gracefully Broken. And when I hear it, I think about myself, how He gracefully broke me, but He broke me for His purpose and for His glory, and how He put me back together, how He allowed the doctors and the nurses and all the medical staff to put me back together where I would have a normal life. And only 10% of people that are in head-on collision car accidents survive. So I'm grateful that I'm in the 10%. I'm grateful I'm in the 10%. And it's been a journey. Up to date now, I'm probably over 30 surgeries, honestly, at this point, of surviving my life. I just have had so many surgeries and so many waiting periods of having to be still and allow my body to heal. I've learned so much patience through all of this, because you can't rush healing.
Absolutely.
You can't rush it. You have to be patient.
Even up to your last surgery last year.
Yes, even up to and with everything I've gone through, I recently had a total knee replacement surgery. And to this day, it has been the most painful thing I've had to recover from. And I say that because a knee replacement is painful, but the fact that I have so much scar tissue, while my knee was healing, the scar tissue mimicked a rubber band around my knee. And which each day I would do physical therapy, the rubber band would get tighter. So I'm up all night because I'm in severe pain. For 1 month straight, I was in over 10 pain. And I just thank God that I didn't lose my mind. I didn't lose my mind, and I never lost my joy. And I was like, "Oh well, this pain has purpose," you know. And I'm excited to see what God is going to do through it because
Absolutely.
I promised myself that I would never waste the pain that I go through. I would never waste it.
Mhm.
So I find something good in it. I ask God, what is the lesson that you want me to learn in this pain,
Mhm.
in this story?
Mhm.
So I search for the answers while I'm going through it.
You just used a statement that is paramount for growth. You have made this statement about physical pain. I say this to the viewing audience. Let's begin to ask ourselves that question in everything we experience that doesn't feel good emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. What is it that you want me to learn? It's called accountability. It's called reflecting, self reflection. Most of the time, we reflect our anger, our bitterness, our betrayal, any pain, any storm. We deflect, not die, we deflect it onto we're looking for who caused it or why it's happening. But if we can sit in it for a moment and begin to self-reflect and ask that one question, life can be different for all of us. God, what is it you want me to learn through this pain? What lessons do I need to take into my future to help somebody else through this pain? Not why is it happening, but what can I take out of this to be a better version of me, to be more obedient to you, to bless somebody else. That was good, Candee. That was good. Okay, moving ahead. When you look back over the seasons of impact, the seasons of pain, the seasons of suffering, the seasons of recovery, what stands out the most in the situation about how God carried you through? What stands out the most?
When I look back and think about what stands out the most to me, what stands out the most to me, and it's a quote that's in my book, and in the last 2 months, several people have said that quote to me, and they made me revisit it. That faith is a team sport, and that with all the pain, all the suffering, all the hardship, disappointment, everything I've gone through, I wasn't alone. I had a team with me, and they helped to activate my faith. They helped to push me. They helped to encourage me. So I would say that's what stand out the most to me, that you need a team. You need the right people around you. You can't go through anything by yourself. God did not mean for us to do life by ourselves. We need people.
Faith is a team sport. Everybody needs to write that one down. Faith indeed is a team sport. And it's big for me. And this season of my life is big, has been big in every decade that I have lived to make sure I know who's journeying with me. If your relationship with somebody doesn't make you a better person, you may need to find a different team member because faith is indeed a team sport. In every relationship, now every relationship is not meant to be there. Most relationships are not meant to be there forever. And I learned that early on. However, relationships should make you better. They should bring peace. And so faith being a team sport is something that people need to write down. That can be on your job, that can be in a marriage, that can be in your church. It is indeed a team sport. We say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to just grow in life.
Yes, it does.
Because when you're weak, that village is there. That team player is there to pick you up. The word says one can chase 1,000, but two can chase. And we can,
10,000.
amen,
Yes,
and we can take
10,000.
that
Yes.
so much further. So we're going to look at now as we shift to survival, to your faith, to the daily fight. You fought through an accident that broke you. It fractured most of your body from your head, your teeth to your feet. What kept your faith alive when the doctor's reports and the physical pain that you were experiencing said otherwise? What did you lean on? Was it the team, the faith team? Was it your personal faith? Was it all of the above? What is it that kept you going when you chose not to believe the doctor's report, but the report of the Lord?
Well, one thing that helped me to believe in the report of the Lord was while I was in the drug-induced coma, I had an experience with the Lord. I felt like I was being pulled into a dark place. And I remember pleading the blood of Jesus. I remember fighting for my life. And when I came out of that coma and people started telling me different stories and like how I was literally fighting in the bed and how they had to tie me down so many times, I came out, I woke up with a fight. I woke up with knowing that I was a miracle and that God had saved me for something. And from that day to this day, I know that there's purpose in my life. So, with that being said, I feel like Job so many times that you could do anything to Candee but kill her because I know she's going to give me glory and that she's not going to forsake me. And I feel like God has entrusted me with this testimony, with this fight, with this faith to believe that all things are possible. And I have a full size bathroom in my mirror. So every day I take a shower, I look at myself and I look at the scars and I look at what I've survived. And I know that there's nothing I can do without, nothing that I cannot do without the Lord's help. Mm-hmm. Because if he's brought me through all of those things, Joanna, and he's allowed me to be put to sleep all those times and operated on, and he's cleared the debt, he's paid the bills, he's made a way that he has purpose for me. Absolutely. So I think that's what ignite my faith. That's what uh, builds my trust in him. And also, I love the Lord. Mm-hmm. And it's evident that he loves me back. Mm-hmm. So I think our relationship is what keeps me going.
That's beautiful. A real relationship. And when you speak about scars, there's so many times that I use this in my mentoring groups and even in teaching over the pulpit. Scars are beautiful because it's a reminder that wounds heal.
Yes.
It's a daily reminder. I've said to you when people find out who you are and some of the things you've been through, and I said her scars are so beautiful because it's a reminder of what she has made it through. She's not looked at by what was done. She's looked at by what she's overcome, and that's a testimony to someone who has lost their faith, to someone who life has broken them physically, emotionally. It's scars sometimes that you see on others or even on yourself that are that reminder that wounds heal. It's a reminder, that thorn in your flesh is a reminder that he got you,
And that you survived.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the more you talk from the beginning of the interview, I just keep hearing the scripture, to whom much is given, even more will be required. He gave you life again.
And again.
And again. So, people can look at the blessings, but they often lose sight of what got you to the blessings. There was a price to pay. So in talking about phrases or scripture, I feel like this phrase was meant for you. The phrase, I don't look like what I've been through. That was written for Aunt Candee McKibbins. Whoever wrote it decades ago, it was written for you. You don't look like what you've been through. And with that phrase, I want to know, what does that mean to you now after so many years of healing and recovery and growth? What does that mean to you now? Does it have a different meaning to you than it would have before you were broken the way you were physically?
I don't look like what I've been through. Yesterday, I heard this quote and I wrote it down. It's by Bob Marley. He writes, "You never know how strong you are until you're being strong is the only choice."
Mhm.
And I think I don't look like what I've been through because strong is the only choice I've had.
Mhm.
I've never had a desire to give up or quit. Um, and I want to make God proud.
Mhm.
I want to make him proud. I want to make him famous. I want people to know that he is truly able to do exceedingly abundantly above whatever we can ask or think, that miracles are still real. He is still in the healing business.
Mhm.
His word is still true and he's still faithful to it. Love truly can conquer all.
Yes.
Um, and I feel that's why I don't look like what I've gone through. And the other thing, I think the reason why I don't look like what I've gone through and what it means to me now is it's all about your mindset. It's all about your mindset. I should have developed mindfulness. I've been doing mindfulness my whole journey. I know how to take my mind to another place, to not focus on where I'm at in my life.
Mhm.
I know how to settle my spirit and settle my mind down to focus on what is good and what is lovely, what is praiseworthy. You know, your mind is everything when you're going through pain, when you're struggling and hardships and disappointment. So, um, I just have so many things that make me glad about not looking like what I've gone through.
You said something that I want to repeat for some young person watching, and I definitely can concur from the life that I chose to live, because everything that we go through is a choice. Faith is a choice. Failing is a choice. Choice. Suffering and how bad you suffer is a choice, because you can change your mindset. The suffering doesn't have to take over you, but you can take over the suffering. And with that said, you said one thing that stuck, because I feel the same way. I choose God. I wanted to make God proud. There are so many times that young people will come to me with different issues or things that won't settle in their spirit. And I always say, don't worry about anybody but God. If you make God proud, everything else will line up.
Yep.
That stuck out, something so simple when you said, I just wanted to make God proud, because everything will line up when you make him proud. He has the authority to do whatever, to release whatever, to heal whatever, to close doors that no man can open, and open doors that no man can shut. He has the ability to do it. So we're always looking to the right or to the left. We're always looking for a validation in relationships. But if we begin to make him proud, everything else will work out. So that was a powerful statement. Let's look at pain and perseverance and purpose. I know personally from being your sister that you suffer with pain every day, and you still refuse to let the pain take you out, take you down, take you under. You still have that same will to live, to thrive. How do you push through spiritually? How do you push through mentally, emotionally, physically, still daily, when every day requires that strength that we're talking about? What is it that helps you to press through?
Well, what helps me to press through first is my faith. I start my day before I get out of bed. I put my earpod in. I put on a prayer. I put on healing scriptures. And then I stretch while I'm still in the bed. Um, I have like a routine that I do to encourage myself.
Mhm.
Starting with the word, then doing physically stretching. Then once I get up, I I started all of these like Tai Chi stretches that I do. Um, and I just think, I mean, I'm happy. And I think it's the joy of the Lord, and the joy of the Lord is my strength. So I think because um I'm the joy is just in my life, that I don't look at myself. I don't see things the way other people see them. I don't feel them the way other people feel them. So I choose to not complain about it. Um, like Tim asked me, well, how are you feeling today? And I said, do you want the truth or do you want, and I'm like, well, I'm hurting, but I'm okay because I am okay. If God has allowed this to come my way, then it is something that he wants to work out of me, in me, through me, or to get to someone else, whether it's a doctor, a nurse, whomever I'm supposed to meet while I'm dealing with this issue. God has a plan. So I know that everything that's in my life is ordained by God because I've surrendered my life to him. So I don't take it as my own. It is not my pain. It is not my hardship. It is not my discomfort. It is something that I'm going through at this moment. And I don't look at it as permanent. I would say if it's not unto death, then I can get through it.
Yes. And for me, something else that you said that sticks out, because you and I both work with a lot of younger adults, the younger than us in this next generation. Everything you said, mindfulness, so much of life can change for us if we focus on two things outside of making God proud: our mindset and our hearts.
Yes.
We were taught that holiness, I won't say where we grow up, we were taught, but the era that we grew up in, people dealt with holiness in a manner of how you looked.
Yes.
And anybody I deal with would tell you that I teach completely different. And holiness is a heart condition, because what's on the inside dictates the lifestyle. It's the same with the mind. Everything starts there. You can't choose what goes to the heart because it started with the thought first. And if we can speak positively, if we could speak the word, if we could speak the opposite of what the enemy of our soul is saying, it would make such a difference. And then what goes into the heart, which what's in the heart dictates the lifestyle.
Yes.
And so you have been such a light to so many who know you because they know what you've overcome and still overcoming. And so it's important to have people that don't put up facades, but people who you actually know the lifestyle, you know what they have overcome, you know what they live from day to day, you know how they speak, you know most of all how they treat others. So I wanted to go back to that as you were speaking, because if we change our words, it'll change our thoughts. And if we change our thoughts, then our hearts will change. So we're going to push to women who need your testimony. What would you say to women who are dealing with invisible battles, that pain that no one sees, that pain that no one knows? What would you say to them? Because I know from watching you for so many years now that there's a lot of pain that nobody sees, because you always have a smile on your face and you're always encouraging someone. So for that invisible pain, what would you say to women and how to deal with that?
What I would say to them is pain is invisible and it's hard explaining it to people. It's hard convincing people that you are in pain. And I would tell them, just because you are in pain, you don't have to look like you're in pain.
Mm-hmm.
You should not have to look broke down and busted and disgusted to convince people that you are in pain.
Right.
You should still live your authentic life and be yourself. It is no way that I'm going to let myself go just to prove to people that I'm in pain. Right. If anything, I'm going to do more to give God glory. Yes, I'm in pain, but that is not permanent. That is today. Tomorrow, I may wake up and not be in pain. So I would tell them, don't get stuck. Don't get stuck in the pain. Mm-hmm. Continue to move forward. Continue to make yourself feel better by looking better. Doing things that you enjoy. Being around people that laugh. Laughter is medicine. Mm-hmm. You want to laugh and have a good time, even though you're in pain. You don't want to succumb to the pain.
And it doesn't have to be physical pain.
No, it could be emotional pain. Mm-hmm. It could be heartbreak. It could be grief.
Right.
It could be depression, but you don't have to give in to it. You get to determine every day what your life looks like.
Absolutely. And ironically enough, you just said grief. Let's look at the fact that this is a sensitive subject. It's still very sensitive. You and your mom, Mama Gloria, were incredibly close. And how long has it been now since she passed away?
I think it's 2.5 years.
Yeah, time is moving. Let's talk about how life changed for you after loss, the losing of her, and I would venture to say she was your best friend. So what has that looked like, the process emotionally, mentally, and spiritually as you still walk through it and try to recover from the grief of losing your mother? Let's talk about how you've navigated that grief.
Well, how am I navigating through it? First of all, I be kind to myself. I allow myself to feel what I'm feeling. And when I'm feeling what I'm feeling, I don't feel like I need to make the next person feel better, that I'm working on myself at that moment. And I think because of who my mom was and how she was, I miss her. But at the same time, the transition that the Lord allowed her to have brings comfort. He allowed her to tell every last one of her kids, her son and daughters-in-laws, her grandkids, her great-grandkids, how much she loved them, who they were. He allowed her to minister to us and speak into our lives before she said goodbye. He allowed her to tell us about what she saw in heaven and that experience and how beautiful it was. He allowed her to encourage us, to tell us, I see my family getting better. I see my family going in a different direction. So when I think about that, and I think about missing her, and I think about how my life is going now, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I had a mother like that. I'm grateful that she sacrificed for all of us and made all of us feel special, down to the great grandkids. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to be loved unconditionally. And with that, it helps me move forward in life. I've never felt insecure because my mama loved me so well, where it wasn't easy to manipulate me or trick me because I was so comfortable in my own skin, even before I had the car accident, but even after the car accident, because of how she just, no matter when she saw me, she encouraged me. She encouraged me no matter what. No matter what I did, she would always encourage me, Candee, people need you. They need to know you. They need your story. Even before I became who I am today, she's always spoken to my life. So I miss her, but she lives within me. And I live to make her proud.
Absolutely. Those last days we were there as well, and she was still, you don't find many people who are consistent.
I always described her as she was constant and consistent. That's who she was.
From the fish fries,
She was always the same.
phone calls to the unexpected envelopes.
Yes, she was going to always give you
consistent.
something.
So we talked about your loss. Let's talk about the miracle of the motherhood for your two amazing sons, how doctors told you you would never probably be able to give birth. And not only did you give birth, but you carried them the entire time you carried them and gave birth to them. Let's talk about that miracle. What was that journey like? I was there, of course, but what was it like from your eyes?
It was just a blessing. It was God's grace at its best. Honestly, the fact that He allowed me to conceive a child, to carry a baby. I was a hairstylist at that time. I worked full time up until like days before I had both boys. and I was concerned about giving birth. I was really afraid about labor and giving birth. And I told my first doctor, I said, can I just schedule a C-section? I said, I'm really good at surgeries. He was like, no, you can't. But the cord was around Christopher's neck, and I ended up having emergency C-section. And I was able to schedule C-section with Bradley. And it was just a joy. I love my boys. I'm grateful. I'm honored that I was able to have babies,
Mhm.
and that I feel like that was a reward that God gave me after suffering so much.
So I guess I can call it a reward. I don't know if you and I ever discussed it. We probably have. I remember when you went through the first pregnancy and it seemed so easy, especially with me knowing how your body was broken. I remember saying, that's so unfair. When I have kids, I'm gonna have to stretch my body, and I was just looking at how easy it seemed, and I went through it the same way, and my body hadn't been broken, so God knows,
He
and
does.
everybody's journey is different. But you couldn't have paid me to think that I would have to go through it the same exact way. But God is so strategic. He's strategic in He's doing, and life leaves clues. Life leaves clues. Let's talk about someone who has gotten a doctor's report that seems final. You know, you're reading your report, it seems final, you're in shock. What would you tell that person?
Well, first, I would say, whose report do you choose to believe? And I've never chosen to believe the doctor's report because they are practicing medicine. God is the author and finisher of my faith. So I trust what he has to say about me. And no matter, I go back to, it's a mindset. You don't have to receive what they say. Now, you don't have to ignore it and be ignorant. I think you need to listen at the doctor, do your research, listen at your body. I don't believe in practicing medicine at home alone without, the doctors supervising you. But at the same time, you don't have to succumb to what the doctors say. Yeah, they are practicing medicine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of my last surgeries, um, and with having, the issues that I always had, after trying about 5 different things to ease my suffering, 5 different things that failed, that made things worse. I remember the doctor saying, okay, we've done A, B, C, D, E. Let me see what we're going to try next. It was at that point that I realized how profound of a statement it is that they are practicing
They are
medicine.
practicing.
They are licensed practicing physicians.
Yes.
And it was at that point that that became profound to me. And I said, it stops here. And I chose surgery. So that was just an extra little nugget.
Well, I think people should be their own advocate for themselves. I think you should research what they say is going on in your body. I think you need to talk to people who have gone through that. But most of all, you need to pay attention to your body. Start writing down like different changes in your body. Or taking notes in your phone, however now. But understand who you are. So when you go back to the doctor, because usually when you go to the doctor, they say a list of things so fast, you don't have time to think. But if you write it down and have a log of what you have been going through, you can say, well, on this date, I did have a headache. On that date, I did have indigestion. You can say those things and help the doctor to understand who you are as a person.
Absolutely. And not make any rash decisions.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Let's go to the marriage. How do you navigate, or how have you navigated through the pain? Because I know that that have to at times affect the marriage, and still you all still choose each other. So many years of the suffering physically. How have you navigated that within your marriage?
Um, I thank God that I have the husband that I have. I think someone else would have left me a long time ago, honestly. Um, Tim has been very patient and kind with me concerning everything, honestly. And in 2018, I started going to therapy because the pain was just, I felt trapped, honestly, in my body because the pain was so severe. And I was just overwhelmed by the basic things in life, as far as like my linen closet, the kitchen cabinets, and just things that were not kept the way I would have wanted them kept. And I suggested to him, I said, I think you should go to therapy. And he started going to therapy and having someone to talk about what he go through as my husband. And I remember the doctor told him he had caregivers fatigue. And, it helped when he told me that, because I started telling him, well, I can do more, honey. You don't have to do all these things. I just let you do it because you were doing it, and
Like to vacuum.
yes. I mean, he was like, he was doing everything. Well, sometimes I needed that, but I didn't need it all the time. But I started pushing myself more because I did not want him to, I wanted to be his wife. I wanted to be the girl that he met. I wanted him to see me as a whole person, not as a patient. So I started making a lot of changes. And I think with us talking and with us doing therapy, I think it helped us to stay close together. And the one thing I would say about what has helped us most is that I think we both still like each other and we communicate well. We talk all the time. I think that has been our blessing, that we talk so much.
That's a good thing in relationships because most men don't talk.
Yeah, well, he
Yeah,
does.
yeah, and especially with you need that, with the way you suffer. And for the record, strengths and weaknesses. He said just recently that he can't go to bed at night unless he see lines in the rug from vacuuming. He's so comical. Laughing
Yes,
is key
he is
too.
funny.
Laughing is key. While we're talking about your love, now you all are getting ready to celebrate year 35. We're up there. Um, what advice can you give couples um, in those seasons that your love is tested? How to stay committed? You all have stayed committed through every season, good, bad, suffering, pain, celebrations. What advice can you give couples coming along who don't have that many years and maybe even thinking, have been thinking about giving up? What advice can you give them?
I would tell couples to take their vows seriously, because we have had, in sickness and health, rich or poor, we've had everything but death do us part. And if you take it, when you're young and you hear those things and you're saying those things, you don't think about it happening to you, but life will happen whether you want it to or not. And the key thing is to remember, why did you get together? Go back to the beginning. Go back to the simple things in life, the simple things that you all did. Now people live so extravagant and like so many big things. Go back to the little things that made you happy in the beginning and try them again.
hmm When you said that, I remembered, and your boys are a few years older than my firstborn. I remember you saying, just when we were having girl talk, we remember a lot of things we said. People don't take time to listen, do they? You said, Jay, one big problem, and of course, at that time I was still teaching, you said, is parents forget when they're raising their children, they lose it because they forget what they did. And on the flip side of that, I can say I've watched parents, and a lot of time the children are penalized because they remember what they did. And we have to just recognize as parents, everybody's journey is their journey, good or bad. But faith is a team. What's our saying?
Team sport.
Faith is a team sport. And that's why it's good to have good, solid relationships with people who you trust and people who walk in integrity, because we need each other with even raising children. So I was just thinking about that as you were talking. Okay, ministry and calling. You've served as, we can talk all day, you know that. as the leading lady in ministry for almost 2 decades now. Tell me, how has your personal testimony had an impact on how you lead God's people, or even how you love God's people?
I think my testimony has had the greatest impact on the way I lead because I'm confident in who I am. I'm not jealous of who my husband is, his gifts, his talents, his ability to sing, play music, preach, prophesy. I'm not jealous of who he is because God has gifted me with the ability to be a miracle and to have a testimony that's my testimony. That no matter how other people try and tell it, I can always pull something out that I've never shared with somebody.
Absolutely.
I can always find a way to remember a time that I can encourage somebody from, to say, I remember when I went through this. I remember how I felt when this happened to me. And between the testimony, the word of God, and my faith, I think it has helped me to become sure of the calling that God has given me.
Mm. That's beautiful. That's 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 powerful. And it's we find, Candy, you and I both work with a lot of women. We find that that is the biggest problem so many times. It's not what everybody else is doing, is you don't know who you are. And so I challenge everybody as we prepare for 2026, if that's a struggle, get with God and find out who you are, because there are gifts, there's testimony, there's overcoming power, there's so much that we all have to give, but it comes with understanding what your story is about. It's making it through your story. It's being healed from the things that you may not have been healed from so that you can tell your story. So that's powerful, just to say you have navigated in loving and leading God's people, first of all, by just knowing who you are. So that's good. As we began to get to the end and wrap up, what has God taught you about purpose and process through your pain, and how has this influenced actually who you are today?
Um, what has he taught me? He's taught me so much about purpose and your pain and the process of it. That there is purpose in pain, and the process of it is waiting and being patient, because no matter what pain, discomfort, heartache um, you have, recovery takes time, and recovery requires waiting and
Mm.
discipline. So it's taught me discipline to be still and enjoy just being still.
Mhm.
Sometimes, no TV, no music, just being still. And um, it's taught me to know myself and to know God, and to believe that He will never leave me or forsake me, no matter what state I'm in, that He's there with me. I'm never by myself.
Yeah. That waiting while in process is so paramount. People don't want to wait. And that's because we live in an era where everything is so quick, and that quick stuff will mess you up.
And the thing about waiting, when you have an incision and they close it with the surgical tape, if you are not still and allow your body to wait, you can make the incision open back up. You can cause the scar to be larger than what it was intended to be. You can cause damage to yourself. So infection, waiting is so important, and being still is so important.
Mhm.
And I think that is one thing that people lack now, is knowing how to be still.
Be still. And I said to someone Sunday, not in praying, prophesying, ministering, just talking through their tears, God wants you to sit in it. We don't want to hurt, but we wouldn't have the faith to believe what we believe if our Savior didn't hurt. And so many times people are wanting to jump out of the fire instead of just understanding that you're not in the fire alone. And so you want to jump out because you don't want to deal with the pain. But if you know your word, then while you're in the fire, you can quote it because he said, the fire won't consume you, it won't burn you. And so the lack of preparation, the lack of, I'm thinking about all of the words that you've said, relationship, being still long enough to get his word embedded, doing those lonely, dark seasons, hiding the word in your heart so that when it gets tough, you got something to speak back, to speak to yourself, to begin to speak to yourself, to know who you are. As you know who you are, you get stronger. You don't worry about what people think. You only want to make God proud. So all of this is connecting to tell a beautiful story. And I'm just glad that you have lived long enough to see investment on your return with your boys, to walk into your purpose time and time again. Because what I've learned is your greatest source of pain is usually the place that God wants to use you. And so many people are not walking it out and calling because they don't know really who they are yet because they're running from the pain.
Or they don't want people to know that they have suffered or have had pain.
Absolutely.
So they want to create an image to make everything look great.
Social media. Absolutely. Well, as we close for real, you're about to publish your next book. In how long do you think that'll be?
I'm hoping to do it in the probably the middle of 2026.
Okay. Well, we'll be looking out for that. Rest assured, we'll have it. We'll post it. We'll do whatever we need to do to get it out to the next one in the sequel of Broken Then Blessed. If you haven't got it, you can get it on Amazon. Yeah. Okay. Looking forward to that. But how is your journey physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally shape this next project? What can we expect out of this? And what do you hope people will get out of it as they prepare and get ready to read your next part of your story?
Well, the next story, I'm so excited about it. I can't tell you all the title yet, but it is about trauma. And one quote that would be in my next book is that the body remembers. No matter what we go through in life, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, or through grief, the body remembers. And the body will knock at your door one day and let you know I'm here to remind you of what you went through.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yes. So that's just, it's going to talk about all those aspects of trauma and how your body remember.
And what's good about that and makes me excited about that is when you hear a quote like that and you still are living, you have time to be careful and do what you can do to put good things in the body because it's going to remember. Some things we can't control, but for the things that we can, then we create a law of equilibrium because you have something to balance out that negative that may happen, those uncontrollable things. What's your part in the story? What's your part in the trauma? Especially those things that you can't control. So I'm excited about that.
I'm
looking forward
excited
to
about it. I think it's going to, my testimony is amazing, but I think this next book is going to hit everybody. It's not my story, it's our story about trauma.
There we are. It's our story, your future. That's my motto.
Yes, it is our story, and especially our story as Black people,
Mhm.
because our lives, we live them, and there's so much trauma daily that we discount as that's just the way we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have begun to have a disdain for people who say, oh, that's just candy. Oh, that's just your one. No, it's not. It's so much more and it's so much deeper.
Yes.
So, well, is there anything else you'd like to share as we get ready to close out this episode?
No, this has been wonderful to take me on this emotional roller coaster, to take me back. I think we all should go back and visit our past every now and then to help us understand who we are now.
And I absolutely appreciate this opportunity and this platform to share and journey with people who journey with me in the podcast because I always leave feeling like it's been like a therapy session. I always, for me as well as the person having the conversation. So it's my prayer that by these conversations of healing and of hope, we're creating a legacy to let people know. When I say legacy matters, you can look at that as we're talking about legacy matters, those things that we need to overcome, those things that we need to share to make someone else's future brighter, or let them know or create a sense of hope where hope has been lost. So legacy does matter. But then I look at the slogan that we use in two ways. We're talking about legacy matters, but then legacy matters. It matters what we're leaving behind. It matters that we heal. It matters that we're processing our thoughts and our past so that we can walk it out in purpose. It matters that our children are watching strength and resilience. Everything we do matters, and we're creating legacy. So we have to make sure we're healing. We have to make sure we're sharing. We have to make sure we're making God proud. So, you and I could go on for days. So I want to say, there you have it. This is a portion of Candee's story. Her life is a testimony all by itself. And her message today was one to anyone who is in need of a miracle, anyone who's facing tests and trials and trauma from the past. And she wants to leave you knowing that miracles are real. Faith works, and your destiny, your future is bigger than any obstacles that you face, any obstacles. So someone needs to know through this conversation today, just simply to keep going. Don't give up. God still writes stories in valley situations. Until next time, thank you for tuning in, and thank you again, Candee, for joining me today.
I was honored. Thank you.